So as you look at, the NFL draft, which of course is coming up in a couple of months, but one thing I wanted to look at is how the Big 12 was going to be affected by it. So I put together a whole list of which team had players leaving the conference and going to the NFL early. And I said, okay, who is getting hurt most by these early entries? Pete Mundo, Heartland College Sports Weekly, part of heartlandcollegesports.com. Thanks for joining us as always. So I put this up on the website. I wrote a little something on it, but I wanted to share it with you here. And I put together, okay, who is getting hurt the most by these early entries? And I ranked those teams. And there are some huge names that are leaving early. The team that's getting hurt most, and I know that they can handle it. I know they reload. They don't rebuild, and that's the Oklahoma Sooners. But OU's losing 5 offensive players in just early entries to the draft. They include Kyler Murray, Rodney Anderson, Marquise Brown, Bobby Evans, and Cody Ford. With Evans and Ford out of the picture, OU now has 4 offensive linemen they got to replace in 2019. I'm not saying it's going to affect the offense. It's not. Jalen Hurts, Lincoln Riley, it's going to work out. It's going to be okay. But to lose that kind of talent, I don't care who you are. That takes its toll on the team. That's something every team has to work through. And, yeah, you'd rather have guys like that returning. I understand why every one of them are leaving. Anderson's been hurt. I mean, the guy, I feel terrible for him, but he's hurt every time he steps on the field. He had one good season. Go try to make some money. Brown, little guy, go try to make some money. Murray, we know his story. Same with the offensive lineman. Go make your money. Go do what you're going to do. I don't blame them one bit, but it's not going to be easy to replace those guys. The team that was hurt the second most in the Big 12 by early entries, Iowa State. Now, they only lost 2 guys. Other teams lost more. But when David Montgomery and Hakeem Butler are walking out that door and going to the NFL off of 2 seasons at Iowa State that helped the program put together its best back-to-back seasons in nearly 20 years, that stings. I knew Montgomery would go. He's a running back. Those running backs only got so many carries in their body. Go. The guy finished first or second in the conference. I think he was first in the conference over Alex Barnes by 1 carry for most carries in the Big 12. Go. He had 250-something carries. Butler, a little more surprised by, but I'll tell you what. He is so gifted. He has the ideal body. He is going to get – somebody is going to – I don't want to say overdraft Hakeem Butler because I think he's a good guy with great skills that were just hidden up until the last couple of years in Ames. But somebody's going to fall in love with Hakeem Butler. So I don't blame him for doing it. If he's got his head on straight, I have no reason to believe he doesn't. It's the right move. It's the smart move, but consistency was still an issue. I'll say this, too, about Iowa State. Tom Manning's back in the mix as their offensive coordinator. He left for the Indianapolis Colts for a season as the tight ends coach there. He's back running the offense in Ames. I think that might be one of the most underrated storylines going into 2019 for the Iowa State Cyclones. That's a big deal. Number 3 team, when we talk about early entries, teams affected the most, Kansas State. Alex Barnes is gone. A guy led the Big 12 at 113 rushing yards per game, had 250-plus carries. I get why he's leaving. But Kansas State was already losing 2 running backs to graduation. Program didn't take a true running back in the class of 2018. Great job, Bill Snyder. And they basically have no backfield in 2019. Got to recruit a running back there, Chris Kleiman. Try to find one in the next 2 weeks if you can, buddy. You're going to need it. I mean, geez. So I don't blame him for going. Once again, running back, you go when you can. You go as early as you can. Smart move, but it leaves the Wildcats in a tough spot. And that program's not built to sling it around. Yeah, Skylar Thompson should be better next year. They have Hunter Rison transferring in, but you still got to have a running game at Kansas State. West Virginia, David Long is gone. Big loss, no doubt about it. Not quite as big as Barnes in my book, but it's a big loss and a big deal for that program as they try to, rebuild under Neil Brown and handing off the reins from Dana Holgorsen. Guy that was the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. Replacing him is not going to be easy for Neil Brown. Oklahoma State, I put at 5. They're losing 3 guys who are good players. Justice Hill at running back, Tyron Johnson at wide receiver, and defensive end Jordan Brailford. Outside of Brailford, I'm not overly concerned. You got Chuba Hubbard at running back, Tyron Johnson was solid, but I got to be honest, when he came from LSU, I just expected more. And maybe it's because it was such a crowded wide receiver corps, and you had guys like James Washington last year. You had Tylan Wallace this year. He never was the star. He was better this year than last year, or he was more productive, I should say. But I thought he was going to be a guy that was going to light it up in Stillwater. He never did. Maybe he's leaving out of frustration. I don't know where he gets drafted or if he gets drafted, but I was surprised to see that. And, Brelford's a big loss. Probably the toughest loss. He had 9 sacks, but once again, I get it. And then last but not least, Antoine Wesley leaving Texas Tech, the sixth team in the Big 12 who has a player leaving early for the NFL draft. The reason they're affected the least, even though Wesley came out of nowhere to lead the Big 12 in receptions and yards, is because it's Texas Tech. There's no shortage of wide receivers there in Lubbock. Cliff Kingsbury left a decent stable. Not saying anyone's going to lead the Big 12 in yards and receptions, but I'll just say, when you talk about this program, especially right now, even with Kingsbury gone, there is plenty of depth at that position. You'd like to have Wesley back, but Antoine Wesley, as good as he is not going to be the reason that Texas Tech doesn't have the success that maybe the fan base thinks it should have next year under Matt Wells. And I was laughing to myself. Imagine if Cliff Kingsbury goes out there in the desert of Arizona, takes Josh Rosen, turns him into like this stud Pro Bowl quarterback, while Matt Wells, and I don't want to see this, but, Matt Wells falls flat on his face and he's winning 5 games a year in Lubbock. How's the fan base going to feel? I'm pulling for Matt Wells. I want him to win. I've admitted many times over I thought it was a mistake to let Cliff Kingsbury go. But, geez, that would be they'd be jumping off buildings in Lubbock if that happened. Pete Mundo, Heartland College Sports Weekly, heartlandcollegesports.com. Always appreciate you joining us, being a part of the show on any platform. We appreciate it. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.